with some pretty extreme weather occurring this past week, resulting in some major flooding for the Northeast and some tornadoes from the plains down in the Midwest. Could we expect to see more of this, or will a major heat wave come into play and put an end to this extreme weather pattern? I'll be breaking that all down coming up in this video. Howdy y'all, welcome back. We're going to take a look at what kind of severe weather we could be dealing with for the next 3 days, and it looks like the Storm Protection Center has issued a slight risk for severe weather, which spans from southeastern Montana on down into Nebraska and from eastern Missouri on up into southeastern Indiana. There is no tornado threat to speak of today, but there is a damaging wind and a large hail threat, which is a 15% chance within both zones, but the most significant threat for large hail is going to be up here by Wyoming and parts of Nebraska and South Dakota. As we head off into Tuesday, there's another threat for severe weather, as there is a slight risk that has been issued over here by Missouri and Illinois, with the marginal risk which spans up into North Dakota. There is no tornado threat to speak of tomorrow either, but there is a damaging wind and a large hail threat, which is a 15% chance within this light risk area. And as we head off into Hump Day, there's another threat for severe weather, a low-end chance, but chance nonetheless, as there is a marginal risk which spans from eastern Missouri on over into western Virginia and from northern Kansas on up into western Wisconsin. Now that we know what the threats for severe weather are going to be for the next 3 days, let's go and take a look at the time frames and when we could expect the worst and severe weather. And to take a look at when we could expect the worst and severe weather for the next 3 days, it's going to take a look at the HRR model. Keep in mind that date and time is up here if you want to keep track. This is an Eastern time as well, and we'll focus our attention over here. Slight risk zone spanning from Montana down into Nebraska. As it pushes forward, it looks like severe weather could be getting started at right around 7 o'clock, with the worst of it lasting through right around midnight, as we could be dealing with upwards of 20 to 40 mile an hour winds with upwards of 50 mile an hour wind gusts from right around 7 o'clock through midnight. And that's when our large hail threat could come into play, as that is the primary threat today. So make sure you put anything up you don't want damage from hail, and make sure you tie down anything you don't want blowing around. We could possibly be dealing with some power outages around this time as well today. It looks like it's going to start to weaken down as we head into the early morning hours of Tuesday, and that's when our flooding threat comes into play, as there is a marginal risk for flooding. So again, if you live in a low-lying area, please be aware of that. And if you are out driving around and you see a flooded roadway, turn around and do not drive around those barricades. And then we focus our attention down here in the slight risk zone spanning from Missouri on up in Indiana, where it looks like severe weather could be getting started at right around 5 o'clock in southern Missouri. Now, there is no tornado threat to speak of today, so it looks like these renegade supercells are going to be dumping some pretty large hail out there. And this is going to be lasting through right around 10, 11 o'clock if you live from Missouri down into Tennessee. If you live from Illinois on over into Kentucky, it looks like your severe weather threats could last from 11 o'clock through right around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, where it starts to wind down and just turn into a flooding threat. Now, the primary threats today over here is mainly just going to be a large hail and damaging wind threat, so not much to worry about in the way of tornadoes. Now we focus our attention over here in parts of Missouri and Illinois. And as we push this forward, it looks like we could be dealing with some early morning convection, and this is where our large hail threat could come into play before a little squall line event starts to form by right around 11 o'clock down by central Missouri, and that's going to last through right around 3 o'clock, and this is where our damaging wind threat could come into play, as we could be dealing with some 30 to 40 mile an hour winds with upwards of 60 mile an hour wind gusts possible. Our main threat is going to be mainly flooding, as there has been a slight risk for excessive rainfall within this area. So again, if you live in a low-lying area, please be aware of that. If you see a flooded roadway, please turn around and do not drown. Now it looks like severe weather is going to start to weaken down as we head into the overnight hours of Tuesday. Then we're going to deal with a marginal risk on Hump Day, which includes states from Missouri on over into Virginia and from Kansas up into parts of Wisconsin. And to take a look at this, we're going to take a look at the named 3-kilometer model. Now keep in mind, we do not know what the main hazard is going to be just yet, and this could possibly be upgraded to a slight risk. But I will keep you all updated on my little Twitter page. If you want to keep updated, go follow that page. I'll have a link in the description below. Now let's focus over here in the marginal risk zone spanning from Kansas up into Wisconsin. Looks like we could be dealing with some severe weather at right around 5 o'clock over here in parts of Minnesota and parts of eastern South Dakota. It's going to last through right around 8 o'clock, and that's as far as the named 3-kilometer will go. I wouldn't doubt that this could be upgraded to a slight risk. But either way, I will keep you updated on the Twitter page. And let's go focus over here in this marginal risk zone, as it looks like we could be dealing with some severe weather right around 3 o'clock through right around 6 o'clock over by West Virginia. As you see, we have some little pop-up renegades over here. But again, I will keep you updated on the little Twitter page if anything does change on this. If you live within the risk areas for the next couple of days, not much really to worry about except for damaging winds and some large hail and some flooding. So let's go and take a look at what kind of hurricanes are forming in the Atlantic and the Pacific. And to take a look at what kind of tropical storms and hurricanes we could be dealing with, we're going to change it up a little bit today and look at the National Hurricane Center. And it looks like we have Tropical Depression Dawn that has formed out here in the Atlantic. And that don't look like it's going to affect much of anybody. It looks like it's just going to die out there in the Atlantic, as it looks like a major troughing pattern is going to be setting in out here. Sea surface temperatures are pretty warm out there. We're dealing with upwards of 70-degree temperatures out there in the ocean. And as we look out here in the Central Pacific, we have Tropical Storm Calvin that has formed. And as we take a look at the wording, it looks like it's going to pass close to the Big Island Tuesday night and Wednesday, bringing a period of heavy rain, high surf, and strong winds. And it's expected to weaken as it moves westward towards the Hawaiian Islands. So if you live in Hawaii, please be aware of that. Again, it is expected to weaken as it heads towards Hawaii. Other than that, we don't have much hurricanes out there to deal with, and as high sea surface temperatures, you can see the reds are really hot, basically hot tub water, almost 90-degree temperatures. And as we take a look over here in the Pacific, we can see where Tropical Storm Calvin is formed. It looks like it's coming into some cooler waters out here. And over here, Tropical Depression Dawn is. It looks like we're dealing with some warm temperatures, but if a hurricane comes into these kind of warm waters right here down by Florida, it looks like we could be dealing with a pretty strong hurricane if no wind shear is in place. And as y'all may remember with my hurricane forecast video, I was talking about we're going to be dealing with an El Nino hurricane season. Basically, it's warmer sea surface temperatures, but a lot more wind shear. And hurricanes do not like wind shear. So it looks like we could be dealing with a lot of hurricanes this season, but due to the wind shear, it's not going to affect the homeland much any. But you still should be prepared and know those evacuation routes just in case that hurricane does form out there and you have to evacuate. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we could expect as we head towards the end of July. And to take a look at what we could expect as we head towards the end of July, we're going to take a look at the 500 millibar height anomalies. Basically, the reds are the good weather, the blues are the bad weather. This is basically the troughing ridging patterns. Basically, reds are the ridging and the blues are the troughs. It pushes forward. It looks like its patterns will persist for quite some time, with some bad weather persisting over this area. And it looks like a trough is going to be setting in for much of the eastern part of the country, for a major ridge is going to be setting in by the end of the month, where a major heat wave could come into play and suppress some severe weather development. But first, let's take a look at what kind of temperatures we could be dealing with a look at the temperature anomalies. Basically, this determines whether or not we see above average temperatures or below. We know we've been pretty below average out east with some above average temperatures out west, and it looks like this pattern is going to change as we head towards the end of the month with above average temperatures for much of the country. As we take a look at the actual temperatures, we can see we actually broke a record out there in California and Death Valley with a 130-degree temperature reading. And it looks like we could be dealing with some 100-degree temperatures down in Texas by July 17th. And it looks like this is going to continue through the end of the month, with 100-degree temperatures surging as far north as North Dakota even. So definitely prepare for that, and it looks like this could potentially suppress some severe weather development. As we take a look at the Euro model, we can see we're obviously going to be dealing with some severe weather for the next couple days, with the slight risk spanning from the central plains down into the Midwest region, with the primary threats mainly being large hail and damaging winds. We're going to be dealing with some more flooding for the northeast part of the country as well through the end of the month, and we could be dealing with an additional 2 inches rainfall on top of what we've already seen, so be prepared for that. It looks like we're just going to be dealing with some light rain showers through the end of the month, so definitely looks like this major heat wave is going to suppress some severe weather development for much of the country. And if we take a look at the Climate Prediction Center, we can see that within the next 6 to 10 days, we're going to be below average from Kansas up into the northeast, but above average for the western part of the country and up by Maine. But for the next 8 to 14 days, this is by the end of the month, looks like much of the country is going to come into a major heat wave, so we're going to be above average. As far as precipitation goes, we're going to be coming into a below average pattern for the northwest part of the country and parts of the Midwest region, but above average from Kansas down into Florida and parts of the northeast, where y'all are going to continue to see some flooding up there. But for the next 8 to 14 days, looks like that's going to remain about the same, except for much of the central part of the country are going to be coming into this below average pattern, while states from Texas on over into South Carolina and parts of the northeast, y'all are going to be in this above average precipitation pattern. It looks like a major heat wave is in store as we head towards the end of the month, and this could mean even less severe weather and more hurricanes, as we already have Tropical Storm Calvin that's going to be heading towards Hawaii and weakening by the time it gets there, and we have Tropical Depression Dawn that's just going to die off by Saturday, not affect much of anybody. And if you live within the slight risk zones for the next couple days, just please be aware of that. It's mainly just going to be a damaging wind and a large hail threat with some flooding as well. If you live in the low-lying area, please be aware of that, and you're out there driving around, see a flooded roadway, turn around and do not drown, and do not go around those barricades. Yeah, it looks like more flooding is going to be in store if you live in the Northeast, so click no relief for y'all. If you live within the slight risk, any storm pictures, I'd like to see them. Send them to my little Twitter page. I'll have a link to the description down below. If you want to send them my way, I'd appreciate it. I'd like to see them. So if you like the video, please hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Appreciate all y'all for watching. But until next time, never stop forecasting.